everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk, and welcome back to the Let's Talk Review Show. This is the monthly show where I review movies for our channel members. So if you are a channel director or a channel bankroll member, each and every single month, I will review a film of your choice, no matter what it is. And believe me, some people have tested that rule, and we'll talk about one of those films here today. But the films we will be talking about today are Zombie from 1979, Unspeakable from 2000, Knockaround Guys from 2001, and last but not least, Pin from 1988. Let's start it off with Zombie, which I actually happen to have the 4K Blu-ray for because I bought it in a Blue Underground sale years ago along with Maniac Cop 1 and 2, and I've never actually gone back to Blue Underground, and I never actually watched this film, Zombie, so I've had it sitting on my shelf, which breaks one of my golden rules, but I had also heard that this is a 4K Blu-ray that is stunning, and Blue Underground, for the most part, has blown me away with their 4K Blu-ray releases. It's just they don't really give us too many. And the films they do give us, other than like Maniac Cop 1 and 2, and this film, it's just like movies that I didn't really have too much interest in. I've never even gone back to Blue Underground, and that's a shame because after watching this 4K Blu-ray, they really are one of the best studios as far as transfers go. I just feel like a lot like Vinegar Syndrome, they can't get their hands on some of the major films. Zombie or Zombie 2, though, depending on where you live, because this is technically a sequel to Dawn of the Dead, but an unofficial sequel to Dawn of the Dead, George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead. You know, in Italy, there's a rule, like, it doesn't matter what the property is, you can make a sequel to that movie as long as it was released there. And, you know, in this case, it's Zombie. That's what it's called here in the United States. Everywhere else, I believe it's called Zombie 2. So it's a little bit confusing just right out of the gate because, yeah, some people might think, oh, it's a sequel to Dawn of the Dead. You know, kind of, but it has nothing to do with the original Dawn of the Dead at all. In fact, I believe Folsey didn't even want this to be a sequel to Dawn of the Dead 2. He had an idea for this film, and that was what this movie was going to be. Unfortunately, I guess they kind of had to do that to sell the film, and I guess it worked because people wouldn't probably watch this movie unless you were a big fan of giallo horror, Italian horror, like Frank is. Frank is a big giallo fan, so I appreciate him always recommending to me these great giallo films. It's really a big blank spot in my movie watching. I'm just not too much of an expert on it. Luckily, Frank has recommended to me such films as this and Demons. And like I said, I happen to have the 4K Blu-ray just sitting on the shelf, never been watched. I was happy to have it, and I'm glad I finally got the chance to watch it because I really don't like having 4K Blu-rays that I don't watch. So I finally checked this one out, and my God, the 4K Blu-ray quality is incredible. This movie, it's just your basic zombie film, but it's got a pretty cool twist in the fact that it takes place on an island. It starts out in New York. The ship comes in and, you know, there's a zombie on board, and they're like, okay, well, where did it orchestrate from? Man, the guy who's on this island, his daughter wants to go investigate, so she's going to go there along with some other people. They're eventually going to group up on this island. That's going to be our main protagonist. But this island is infested with zombies, and some of the coolest looking zombies you'll ever see. I mean, some of the effects of these zombies are coming out of the dirt and the makeup. It's the best looking zombies I have seen in film history, and this 4K Blu-ray just lends itself so much to that. It's, you know, in Dolby Vision and HDR10. It's got a Dolby Atmos track, just the bells and whistles of a great 4K Blu-ray. And if you're a fan of this film, I mean, it's everything you could have ever asked for when it comes to the visual and audio quality, not to mention the second disc of extras. So for me to have this and have never seen the film, I was just blown away by not only how this film looked, how it sounded, and of course the extras on that. But the film itself, you know, it kept me interested the entire time. Like I said, I'm not somebody who's too familiar with the giallo stuff, so the plot of the movie isn't something that really, you know, keeps you invested. It's really just the kills. It's funny, there's a video game called Zombie Island. It had to take everything from this movie. If they would have called this film Zombie Island, that would have made sense. It kind of has that like tropical feel to it, very sunny for the most part until we get to the very end, except for scenes at the very beginning and the very end. And the very end of the movie has pretty much the exact same ending as Return to the Living Dead, just on a bigger scale, and I love it for that. I wanted to see that movie that they hinted at the very end of this film, but of course, you know, they just shot these pickup scenes mainly to help sell the movie, but it does make it feel bigger than it is because for the most part, this movie does take place on that island. You know, it's an Italian horror film, so you're going to have a lot of dubs, but really watching this movie, you're going to be blown away by the practical effects. Why can't we do this anymore? I get it probably costs money and it takes way too much time and the actors probably hate all the makeup, but to end up with these incredible looking zombies, like I'm telling you, like the close-ups on this on the 4K Blu-ray are some of the best close-ups I've ever seen in film history. Again, a lot of that is probably the 4K Blu-ray, but they had to go in and do this restoration and clean it up and bring it back to what it originally looked looked like, to what it originally looked like. And it looks phenomenal. Like, for me, the big selling point is this 4K Blu-ray if you can get your hands on it. If you're a fan of the film, that's just a big selling point because, you know what? This movie did make a fan out of me. I'm still not the world's biggest Giallo fan, so I can't say I walked away from this movie, like, in love, really looking forward to my next watch, but I did walk away from it a lot like other Giallo films, feeling like, all right, I'm glad I finally checked that one off. I'm glad I watched it. I enjoyed myself. I still think Demons is a much better Giallo film, but hey, I really enjoyed Zombie 2. I could see why this one has developed a huge cult following over the years. And like I said, here in the United States, it's called Zombie. We have the 4K Blu-ray from Blue Underground, but Arrow Video, I believe, is going to be releasing Zombie 2, same exact film on 4K Blu-ray for the UK and Region B. So if you guys have been waiting for this movie to come to 4K Blu-ray, hopefully it's the exact same scan as this because it is a damn good looking film. So how would I rate Zombie on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm going to give Zombie a really solid 8 out of 10. And the next film we're going to be talking about is 2001's Knockaround, guys, for Mr. Smelly Potato. This film is directed by Brian Koppelman and David Levin. I've actually never really heard of these guys. And in this movie, they directed Vin Diesel, Barry Pepper, John Malkovich. Mike Starr even pops up in this movie, so a pretty damn stacked cast. It's your classic mafia film, a very short one at 90 minutes, and I like the subject that they're exploring in this movie. You know, oh, Dennis Hopper's in this movie as well. I actually forgot about that. He's the father of Barry Pepper's character in this movie. John Malkovich plays the uncle to Barry Pepper's character, and you know, they are your classic mafia family. They even got some pretty bad New York accents, especially John Malkovich. I love John Malkovich. Leave the accent at home. You know, you've done this before in movies like Rounders. Stop playing around with the accents. It doesn't necessarily work. Your regular voice already sounds unique and original. I don't think many people are going to question it, but you didn't have to do the Italian accents in here. And for the most part, even Dennis Hopper, they don't work. World-class actors, but you didn't really have to do it. I get what you're going for. Sometimes leave the accents at home. That was just my one really big complaint, because overall, I love the subject of this movie, exploring guys like Barry Pepper's character, who is the son of Dennis Hopper, this big-time mafia guy, and, you know, obviously the nephew of John Malkovich, who we see right in the opening scene. They want this kid to be a killer. The guy who set up his father, played by Mike Starr, you know what? I think his name is something Highway or something, like Bobby Highway or something like that, or Bobby Boulevard. He's like, come on, you know, he's like a 12-year-old kid. He's like, all right, I'm going to teach you to be a man. You're going to kill this guy. This is the guy who set up your father. Of course, no 12-year-old kid, I don't care how cold they are, they can't be put in that position to kill him. But for the rest of his life, John Malkovich like looks down on him and doesn't see him as a tough guy, not willing to do the dirtier work. So now he becomes essentially a knockaround guy. So which means in the eyes of the mafia, you know, there's just, you know, regular errand guys. They're not willing to do the dirty work. We can't put them in serious situations, so we'll just kind of give them the easy work. Go collect money for us, you know, the whole shebang. But of course, Barry Pepper's character wants to be a sports agent. He loves sports, but people know his dad. They know his dad, Dennis Hopper, and they're like, we're not giving you a job because the second I hire you, that's it. You're just going to strong on me and intimidate me, and I want nothing to do with that. But he genuinely wants that job. So he knows that he's never going to be given an opportunity to show off his skills. And unfortunately, that means he kind of has to go crawling back to his dad, get this big job to like prove himself to his father, even though it's not necessarily what he wants. And I love that aspect of this film, exploring these kind of guys underneath the big guys. Like, you know, everyone talks about Nepo babies now. What about the Nepo babies underneath what about the kids born underneath mafia men? Like, maybe they don't want to be those kinds of guys. They just want to be regular people, but people will only see the last name. And that's kind of sad in a way. But this movie, you know, he's going to have to literally prove himself. He's got to get the bag. And that's what this movie's about, is getting the money back from some people in this redneck town. Unfortunately, Seth Green is a fucking idiot, and he makes a huge mistake, leaves the money because he thinks that the cops are on to him. He wasn't wrong about that, but it's still, like, he's the reason this all happened, and, you know, he's a friend of Barry Pepper, so he's like, come on, you gotta forgive him, and this is where all the twists and turns in the movie start to happen, and it has a pretty good twist ending. I know some people think that's a spoiler, but this movie's 25 years old, but definitely hang around for that ending. It really surprised me. My biggest flaw about this movie, though, is those New York accents, and it was too short. This was a 90-minute movie. I always appreciate a nice 90-minute movie, but I actually wanted to see these characters fleshed out a little bit more. I love what they were exploring. I just wish they explored that more. Like, I felt like they were just trying to like come around at the end and like tie everything together nice with a bow, when I think you should have fleshed this. Honestly, another hour of this movie, I would have been all in. It does feel like an early 2000s film, kind of in that same vein of like The Italian Job and Gone in 60 Seconds kind of tone, but I also feel like it's a little bit more grounded and a little bit more serious. Even Vin Diesel gives a good performance in this movie, and that's saying something. I actually thought that the character that he's portraying in this movie totally fits the kind of guy that Vin Diesel is. He's not really going outside of his range. He's not going outside the guardrails. He's not talking about, although actually he is talking about family, but in a different way. It's not going to save his life like it does in the Fast and Furious franchise. So overall, I thought Knockaround, guys, was a great film. It just, like I said, needs to get rid of those accents, and I just wish we would have had more of it. So overall, I think Knockaround, guys, is a pretty solid one. You can check this out right now. It's like, I think I watched it on Tubi. It's an 8.5 out of 10. And the next film we're going to be talking about is Pin from 1988, directed by Sanders Stern, and this was a TV movie, but it stars Terry O'Quinn right around the time he was doing The Stepfather, and his character in this movie is very similar to The Stepfather, so I had never seen this movie before, so going in, when you see him, I'm actually thinking, like, this guy is going to be playing the exact same thing. He's going to be a monster underneath it all. That's not the case. What is the monster, though, is Pin, or a plastic nightmare, because that's what PIN stands for. And it's basically this plastic doll. He's a doctor, and the way he communicates with kids, because he's not the most outgoing person, he does ventriloquism with this doll. Now, this doll looks scary as hell no matter which way you spin it. It's like the organs are on the outside, and one of those kinds of teaching dolls, but it looks so weird. And then, of course, he's doing the ventriloquism for it. What he doesn't realize is that he has two kids, and this is how he kind of communicates to his two kids about sex and other things like that. But to communicate to Leon and Ursula, his two kids, he used the doll. The thing is, Leon thinks the doll's real. He even runs up there to talk to it by himself. So Leon's like kind of starting to lose his shit. He's a paranoid schizophrenic, so even, things are just not going well, and people can tell. But then, of course, one fateful night, unfortunately, the parents pass away. Terry O'Quinn and his wife, they end up dying in a car accident. It doesn't look like the kind of car accident you'd think they'd die in, but of course, low-budget horror film, made for TV. We're not going to have explosions. We just flip the car over. You're like, oh, they died? Like, I actually was hanging around like, I thought they would just be really injured. But no, they're dead, and now the kids have to live on their own. Their aunt's going to come stay with them. But, Leon's getting worse and worse. He's talking to Pin. Ursula's like, because Pin comes to live with them, and now Leon's doing the ventriloquism, and everyone, and Ursula's like, loves her brother, great sister. I appreciate the love of her for her brother. She doesn't want to put him in a home, but yeah, he needs to go into a home because unfortunately other people start to die now, and he thinks that Pin's just a real person, just walking around, talking to everybody, giving friendly advice. Ursula knows the truth, but she's just too afraid to say anything because she loves her brother. But Ursula needs to have a life for herself, so when she's going out, like dating guys, obviously this is going to rub Leon the wrong way, and it's definitely going to rub Pin the wrong way as well. And the movie itself, I'm very surprised that this didn't actually get released in theaters, because another film just like Knockaround, guys, I just wanted more, and I wanted better special effects. The effects for this movie are just pretty damn bad, and the only way to really watch this movie right now is on YouTube. It doesn't have a physical release. It's not even available to stream, except somebody just put it on YouTube. And luckily, that's the only way you can watch it, which is a shame. I'm not somebody who's a big supporter of bootlegging movies, but if that's the only way to watch a film, like if there is no physical release or no which way to stream it, because I would have had no problem paying for it, I would have watched this. I would even probably buy this if it came out on physical media. But the thing that hurts it is that it does feel like a TV movie, an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark or Goosebumps, like literally the way it's shot. It looks just like those TV shows from back in the day. I wouldn't even be surprised to find out this movie was filmed in Canada, despite the fact that the kid at the beginning of the movie has a Mets hat on. Smart kid. And you also see a Mac in the background too. I just like seeing those little piece of technology from the 1980s, because it's 1988, so the Mac is still pretty new. It's just cool to see that in somebody's room. Really appreciated all those little elements, but more money, this could have been a very cinematic film, and that I think would have helped with the horror elements, because who doesn't get scared of a doll? Who doesn't get scared of a doll looking like that? I just think that this movie needed more money. The score is actually pretty fitting for it, but again, it just never can get over that hump of feeling like a TV movie. And it's not the movie's fault, because overall, it does have a very interesting plot. The acting, not great. I didn't expect that. Terry O'Quinn just stands out head and shoulders above everybody else. But again, didn't expect great acting. They did the best they could. Overall, I thought Pin was a pretty good movie. It's just missing certain elements that would help it get to that point of being like a great movie. So overall, I would give Pin a pretty damn solid 7.5 out of 10. Now, one thing about that movie is it leaves you with an ambiguous ending. And that ambiguous ending is pretty much the exact same ambiguous ending that we're going to talk about for the film from 2000, Unspeakable. And Unspeakable is directed by Chad Farron. This movie came out in 2000. I was looking for this movie on Tubi, and there is a bunch of movies with the name Unspeakable. Luckily, if you're looking for this movie, it's the hour and 20-minute film on there from the year 2000, just not to get confused. But if you do want to check this movie out, let me just warn you, this is Uncle V's choice as a director review for me. And Uncle V, he loves to challenge me. If you guys have been paying attention to this series, he's the guy who last month wanted me to watch Necromantic. He's the guy who introduced me to a Serbian film. Now, these are movies that I necessarily would have never watched on my own. And I still do not want to watch those movies. But Uncle V, he is a channel director. He's a longtime friend. I'm always willing to do the review for him, but like I said, he really wants to challenge me because a movie like this, another exploitation horror film from the year 2000, it doesn't feel like that when you watch it. It actually feels like a 1980s horror film, mainly because when you're watching this on Tubi, it looks like it was ripped right from a VHS, and not a good VHS, so it looks very, very, very low quality. And then in the opening scene, I mean, the acting is just absolutely atrocious. We see a car accident happen, and it just looks like they were doing guerrilla filmmaking, like they didn't have permits to do this or anything, at least like for the opening shots in the tunnel that you've seen in so many movies before. Think of Blade Runner or The Last Boy Scout, you know, that white tunnel in LA, you know, where everything, the light reflects off the sides. You've seen it before. It looks atrocious in this opening scene, but it does feel like they just kind of set up a camcorder and filmed it because they weren't going to get permits, not for a movie like this. So again, then we get to the characters in the car, and the wife is just absolutely horrible, berating the husband, just saying every which thing she can, just talking shit about him to the daughter who's in the back seat. And then the car, again, they get in a car accident just like the last film we talked about. We don't see the car accident, we just see the injuries. We find out that the daughter's died, and the husband blames the wife who has survived. And he starts to abuse the wife, brings in a nurse played by another atrocious actor, who, of course, he starts to abuse that wife as well. And then the husband, he's all distraught now. You know, he's lost his daughter. So he's just out there picking up hookers and then killing them. And, you know, he's getting his revenge on people who have wronged him. And that's basically what this movie's about. They're also trying to uncover things like, did he have a relationship with his daughter? Like an incest relationship? Very weird, uncomfortable stuff in this movie, which is what it's going for. It's an exploitation film. The whole point of it is to make you feel uncomfortable while you're watching it. And they sure did nail that one. This isn't a movie that I would ever like go back to watch. I'm always fascinated that people sign up for these kinds of movies. Like I guess maybe they support the art, maybe they support the artist. I'm not entirely sure, but like anytime I see like a kid in a movie like this, I'm like, who's the parents? Like, what did they sign on? Do they trick the kid? I don't know. There's the things that they're hearing. It's just very surprising to me to find out. Like, I mean, I guess it's not like a video nasty or anything like where they're hurting real people. No, they're still acting. It's just that, you know, what they're acting in is a huge surprise to me. But you know, it does have, if you're watching this movie for the movie, I guess it does have a through line through it. But you know, of course, you're gonna see a decent special effects for when the death scenes happen. Like, that's something that, of course, they probably spent all of their money on. It's just that this isn't the kind of movie I could recommend to many people unless you were into these kinds of films. It's funny to me that Kevin Kruger, like 2 months in a row, Kevin Kruger and Uncle V picked movies that have very similar endings and also have very similar subject matters. Just one is a more conventional film, a lot easier to digest than the movie Pin, whereas this is not a film for everybody. This isn't even a film for like a minority of people. Like, this is really going to be for certain types of people. They'll probably appreciate a film like this. I don't know if I'm necessarily the target audience. I appreciate that it exists, I guess, but either way, or I have to give this one, just like I did with Necromantic, I'll give it like a 2.5 out of 10. It's not something I'll ever run back to, but it does exist, which did surprise me, so I can recommend it for that. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for another episode of the Let's Talk Review Show. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video if you could, and if you want to become a channel member like the people we were talking about here today, you can do that and have your own choice review each and every single month. We also have 2 other tiers, the friend of the channel and the producers tier. If you want to help us out, we would really appreciate that. But of course, no pressure at all. If you got no money to throw away, don't worry about it. We just hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.